But Writers Week is 29 years old this year, having begun in 1995. In its second year, legendary poet and author Gwendolyn Brooks graced this very stage, and our next guest, Eden Robbins, was a senior in the crowd in 1996, taking in the magic that is Writers Week. Some of the enormity of Writers Week's genesis is its reciprocal nature. Today, several Fremd alumni are forming the core of writers helping to propel it forward. Eden returns to Writers Week today, having published her first novel, When Franny Stands Up. Set in post-World War II Americana, protagonist Franny Steinberg discovers comedy and its ability to push social boundaries. She uses it as a force to weaponize the traumas of life. The ethereal voice in When Franny Stands Up is authentic, genuine, honest, which helps the reader connect to Franny and makes them want to stand up with her. It is my pleasure to introduce Eden Robbins.
Hi. Can you hear me? I can't tell. Yeah? No? It's on? Okay. All right, hi. I'm Eden Robbins. This is me with a mustache. This is also me at Fremd around 1996. Here I'm getting ready for an 80s themed party, displaying my collection of Junior Mints and displaying my dissected cat. We didn't take a lot of photos in those days, so this was the weird assortment that I could find. I graduated from Fremd in 1996, which means I probably went to school with some of your parents, which is very weird for me. I was a student, like Jeremy said, at the first Writers Week ever, and it blew my mind it happened on this very stage. And I'd say my biggest claim to fame in high school is that I won the state championship in the speech team event of radio speaking. So, woo! So if you like the sound of my voice, you have the speech team to thank. And if you don't, you have the speech team to hate. This is my book. It's called When Franny Stands Up. Came out in November. I like to say it's a queer, marvelous Mrs. Maisel where jokes are magic. It takes place just after World War II in Chicago, when women run stand-up comedy and have developed a kind of magic called a showstopper, where each comedian inflicts a particular kind of experience on her audience. One comedian's showstopper makes you feel like a Hollywood starlet, another makes you feel like you can fly, another like arriving at the corner just as the bus arrives. So this really runs the gamut of fun experiences. In the book, 23-year-old Franny Steinberg is reeling from her own personal traumas, and her brother has just returned from the war with PTSD. Her family is falling apart and is just pretending everything is fine. Franny ends up stumbling into stand-up and starts to believe she can fix herself and heal her brother through comedy, though, of course, it doesn't work out that way. Yeah. I think it is. It is on? Now it's on. Okay. Do you want me to start over? Which part didn't you hear? Let's start there. Well, anyway, okay, so this is my book. Well, you got enough of it, I think. Okay, so here's the plan. I'm gonna read from When Franny Stands Up just a little bit. We're gonna do a quick poll. I'll give you some wise wisdom. And then I'll do a short reading from a new project that I've never showed anyone before, so pretty scary, but I think you guys will make me feel good about it. And then we'll do a Q&A. Sound okay? Great. Okay. That book again. Here it is. And now I just need to find my spot. Okay. I have too many tabs on here, so I need to find the right one. Okay. The only thing you really need to know about this passage is that Franny has just had a traumatic flashback at her best friend's wedding and has run away in her bridesmaid's dress to the Blue Moon, which is a comedy club in Chicago that is run by a mobster named Fingers Marconi and his wife, Lottie. A girl in wrinkled nylons gripped the microphone and warbled dirty parody lyrics to a record of Oh My Darling Clementine. The record was louder than her voice, so mercifully, her jokes about the miner stooping his sister were drowned out. Unfortunately, not entirely. Franny stood in the doorway to the Blue Moon and thought maybe she had made some mistake. Barb the bouncer was napping with her head pressed to the door frame, cap as a pillow, a lit cigarette sticking to her bottom lip as she snored lightly. All the lights were on, and without the mysterious cover of darkness and smoke, exciting perfumes, and the chatter of women, the club felt too real, embarrassingly so, like catching Eleanor Roosevelt on the toilet. The club was nearly empty, except for the girl on stage, two skinny girls smoking at a side booth to the right, and Lottie Marconi, slumped over a highball glass at a bar stool. She looked up when Franny entered, and Franny froze with a dumb smile on her face. But just as she anticipated, Lottie didn't recognize her, just picked up her highball and clinked the ice cubes, which brought out the bartender from around the hidden corner, wiping her hands on a dirty towel. The record ended, and the thin girl finished her song on a sour high note, then paused as if waiting for applause. When none came, Franny clapped enthusiastically, but the girl scowled at her, heaved the record player off the stool, and walked off stage. Lottie wore white pedal pushers and a green plaid blouse tied at the midriff, and Franny didn't see an ankle gun, so that was a good sign. When she applauded, Lottie turned to glare at her. "What are you, anyway, a princess?" It was one thing to face Lottie Marconi in the dark in a crowd, and a whole other thing to pretend she was just a regular person. "Somewhere between princess and frog, really," Franny said. Lottie lifted her highball for a sip and then slammed it down. "You're that smartass I tossed out on Thursday," she said. "This day just keeps getting better and better." She tilted her head back and downed the drink. Barb the bouncer chuckled, adjusted her posture, and somehow never lost the cigarette. Franny took courage from the fact that she hadn't been thrown out or shot and heaved herself onto a bar stool. "I could be wrong," Lottie said into her empty glass, "but it appears you're even closer to me than you were before." "And here I thought bar stools were for sitting," Franny said. After everything that had happened, here she was, sassing Lottie Marconi to her face again. What was it about this place that loosened her tongue? But when it really mattered, when she really had something important to say, her voice took permanent vacation. Franny became very interested in pretending to read the bar menu, felt Lottie's eyes boring into her. "That is a ghastly dress," Lottie said. "I was going for aquatic enema bag," Franny said, not looking up. "How'd I do?" Lottie laughed. "Well, you won't make it on the cover of Vogue," she said. "I'll say that much." "You'll see. Next season, this look will be all the rage. Girls everywhere clamoring for a dumpy Jewish tuchus." This seemed to really tickle Lottie, and she let out a girlish, tinkling laugh that lit up her whole face. The laugh burrowed inside Franny like a tapeworm. It terrified her to realize she would starve herself to feed it. The occasional rumor about Lottie Marconi popped up in the papers. Tiger engagement, nonsensical comments about preferring girls over boys, who didn't, an unwanted come-on from one of Finger's men that ended in bloodshed from Lottie's pocket nail file. And seeing Lottie face-to-face should have exposed them as absurd fables, but somehow these rumors now seemed exceedingly possible. There was something about Lottie that was both real and unreal. You would think all her mystery would evaporate with the harsh lighting, but Franny just wanted to look closer. Glossy black hair pulled back in a ponytail that curled slightly at the ends, narrow, honey-colored eyes, lips in a mean smile, making an arrow of her Roman nose. She was pretty, sure, but it was more than that. It was the reason Franny humped up on the stool instead of running away again. That something made her chest warm. She wanted to be near it. She wanted some of it for herself. Franny felt great? Was that a feeling a person could have? "Get this Jewish princess a glass of bubbly, Enid," Lottie said, relighting her cigarette. "My treat. What's your story, pretty enema bag?" The blonde bartender slid a flute of champagne across the bar. Franny took a big gulp, blushed, and struggled with the knotting of her tongue. She would not clam up, not now. "I couldn't hack it as a bridesmaid," she said, Cold feet. The bridesmaid ran away, Lottie said. That's a new one. She leaned back, regarded Franny with a smirk. Hello, which one of us is next? One of the girls in the booth called. Franny had forgotten all about them. Lottie ignored them, held out her free hand to Franny. Lottie Marconi, she said. I run the place. What's your name again? She asked. Goldstein. She said it in a mocking Yiddish accent. Franny Steinberg. Lottie snorted. That will not do, she said. Sorry to disappoint. Too Jewish, she made a face. You need something lighter, more fun. Jews aren't any fun. What about Peggy? What about her? Franny said. Yeah, Peggy. We'll think about a last name, something quick, one syllable, easy to remember. Blake, Barb called. Lottie Marconi took a drag of her cigarette and nodded. You're a pro, Barb. That's perfect. Peggy Blake. Okay, Peggy Blake, you're next. I'm lost, Franny said. Who are we talking about? Lottie shoved her shoulder. You. This is amateur hour, and you're the next amateur. Tell us all about being a runaway bridesmaid. Make me laugh again. I could use a laugh today, I'll tell you what. Franny was not finding any of this even remotely funny. I'm here to see Boopsie Baxter, she said, ideally from the audience. Lottie's smile faded. Gosh, for a second there, I had forgotten how we met. Too bad I left my piece at home. I bet that would convince you. I don't know, Lottie. Looks like you got a piece right there next to you, Barb said. Franny could still feel Peter's handprint on her sweaty back, and there it was, the twinge of an oncoming bellyache. What was she even doing here? Franny didn't tell jokes. She was the butt of them. Lottie grabbed Franny's forearm before she could slide off the stool. Make me laugh, and you can stay. And if I can't? Lottie ashed her cigarette into Franny's champagne. Let's not be morbid, sweetheart. Maybe they'll have you at the Velvet Swing. Have you is right, a little spicy entertainment. Barb puffed out a guffaw. Papa loved to point out Fingers Marconi stories when they popped up in the Tribune. Fingers Macaroni strikes again, he always said. Getting a little handsy, isn't he? Franny would say. It was fun because it was like a movie, a drama unfolding in an imaginary life far, far away. But now Franny sat knee to knee with the real gangster's real wife, whose closet seemed like it might contain even more skeletons than her husband's, with Franny one wrong decision away from becoming a headline herself. And yet, the door to the Blue Moon was more than just a door. It was a portal. Here or there, uncertain future or painful past, possible finger loss or definite bellyache. Franny had 10 fingers and hardly used them all on a regular basis anyway. She smoothed her gauzy dress, patted her flyaway hair, and took the longest walk of her life to the stage of the Blue Moon. How come she gets to go? A girl whined as she passed their booth. We was here first. A microphone was set up on the small, low stage in front of the house band's snare drum, with very little room in between for standing. There was, Franny noticed, a naked, Greekish statue of a woman glaring from over her right shoulder. They were all glaring at her, the three girls, Lottie with her burning cigarette, even Barb had cocked an eye open to watch, and the bartender had stopped wiping glasses. Franny's legs started to shake. What words did she know? How did sentences work again? Somehow she was even watching herself, sweaty, mouth breathing. Just perfect, she thought. Two Frannys, neither of them capable of speech. Say something, one girl whined. Hello, ladies and germs, Franny tried. She had heard Milton Berle start that way on Texaco Star Theater, but the girls in the audience groaned. Lottie clinked the ice in her empty glass. The clinking echoed in Franny's head like chattering teeth, like dice rolling out the odds of her getting out of here alive. The microphone was so far away it was practically on another planet, and yet her heart pounded so loud she was sure everyone could hear. What's Franny said, a man that crawls in the morning and walks at noon and has a cane at midnight? Wait, she shook her head. No, let me try that again. What's something? That's a riddle, a girl shouted. Who is this Joker, Lottie? Not Joker, more like, said another. Lottie slid off the stool like a dancer and started a slow, determined walk to the stage. Wait, no, Franny said, I got one. The girls started to boo. Someone threw an ice cube at Franny, missed, and it cracked against the wall behind her. Lottie was maybe 5 steps away from the stage, and she did not look like a person who would be sympathetic to stage fright. She had told Franny to make her laugh, and Franny had failed. And well, just because a person didn't have a gun didn't mean she wasn't dangerous. Franny was being stalked like prey by a tiny woman in a ponytail. Anything could be a weapon in the right hands, even jokes. Thank you. Okay. It's time for a quick poll. I'm going to squint at you. Who wants to be a writer? Wow. Okay. Yes, like 2 people. Fantastic. Oh, I see a tentative third. Okay. Who has had someone in their life try to talk them out of being a writer? Yeah. Okay. And then, how many would consider being writers if it wasn't for the people trying to talk you out of it? Okay, yeah, okay, a couple more. Good. All right. And then real quick, is there anyone willing to share the reason someone gave you for why you shouldn't be a writer? You just shout it out. No? Money? Anybody else? Money. Okay, great. All right. Well, guess what? I'm going to try to talk you into it. Maybe the only person ever, even the people who don't want to be writers, you're going to want to be at the end of this. So first, let's debunk some myths. It's too hard. You won't make it. You really think you have something worthwhile to say? You might hear things like this from other people or in your own head. They seem honest and helpful, but really, what they all boil down to is fear. Fear can be useful. It can keep us safe, but it's not really the best decision maker. And in this case, when someone tells us writing is too hard or anything, or do we really have something to say, a lot of times what they're afraid of is uncertainty. I hate uncertainty. It's so uncertain. It would be nice to be sure that we'd make it, or sure that we definitely have the most important thing to say, or sure that we're not going to get hit by a bus tomorrow, but we just are never going to have that satisfaction. Some things in life might seem more certain than others, but that also is just an illusion. It's all uncertain. This may sound really scary, but it can actually be freeing. If we don't know, then the future could hold anything. And as someone who is comparatively elderly, I can tell you there will be triumphs and losses no matter what you choose in life. I spent 12 years trying to get this book published, and I had my heart broken several times. It nearly happened once, and then the publisher that wanted to buy the book went out of business. And then I wrote 2 more books that were terrible, and finally, When Franny Stands Up was published. None of this was inevitable, but there's something to be said for trying anyway. As far as not having something to say, you are unique in the entire universe. No one has ever been you in the whole history of time. What are the odds that you wouldn't have something to say about that? And if you have a voice that historically people have not listened to, whether you are BIPOC, queer, trans or non-binary, disabled or neurodiverse, consider this message doubly loud for you. Money. As in, you won't have any. Okay, this one's true. I wish I could tell you that we live in a world that values creativity, but we don't. At least not right now. I'm hopeful this is changing. But in the present moment, I can tell you that like 99% of the authors you love have other jobs, or a partner with a job, or family money. And I'm not trying to burst your bubble here. I actually think this can be very empowering, because you won't think it's the norm to get rich off of writing. And that frees you up to build an interesting life that works for you. In a country that demands you make your job your identity, you get to question that. Your non-writing work can feed your interests. I've had a bunch of jobs over the years. Right now, I write for a mental health app that helps people through tough times. In the past, I worked in a sex toy store. I've taught kids and adults. I've worked in a museum, and I've written all kinds of articles and essays and video scripts and websites. You can find something that allows for flexibility and time, for you to prioritize your writing. We live in a time and a place that is unkind to working people, so protecting yourself financially is important. But I like to think of my job as an old-timey patron that gives me money so I can write. The point is, it's not ideal, but it's doable. And unless you are a runaway success, this is what most writers are doing to support their writing. So don't worry about it. Nobody reads and nobody cares. I mean, in a literal sense, this isn't true. There wouldn't be a publishing industry if no one read or cared. But in a philosophical sense, it is kind of true. There is no one out there really who is clamoring for your words and your perspective, who is counting down the minutes until you publish. Even once you do publish, even then, no one will be beating down your door for more you. I promise you this is good news. It means you get to follow your interests. What lights you up inside? What gets you excited? What do you read and care about? Being a writer means it is literally your job to figure that out and do it. You can find the world's indifference depressing, or you can find it hugely freeing. As you figure out the stories you want to tell, this search can also lead you unexpected places to meet unexpected people. If you had asked me when I was at Fremd if I ever thought I would meet a deep-sea marine biologist and get to travel 6,000 feet below sea level in the Alvin submersible just so I could write about it, I would not have believed you. But here I am. Writing leaves room for the unexpected, the unplanned, which is just a friendlier way of saying uncertainty, by the way. If no one cares, then you're free to figure out what kind of life works for you. The world is crumbling. Shouldn't you be doing something useful instead? This always sounds weirdly puritanical to me, as though useful work always has a direct and immediate and obvious effect on the world and is defined by how much you hate it. Artistic work that is enjoyable and doesn't affect the bottom line is considered at the very least frivolous, if not outright suspect. But have you ever tried to make yourself do something because it's supposed to be good and virtuous? You might be able to force yourself for a little while, but it's not sustainable. Enjoying what you do is key to doing it long term. It's the writer's job to look unflinchingly at the way things are and make something beautiful or interesting or scary or funny out of it, something that only that writer can do. Is that useful? Maybe. But is utility the only kind of way to live, the only way to be of service? Don't those of us who live in a crumbling world deserve humor and beauty and interesting stuff too? Anyone ever read a book that totally changed how you think? Anybody? Yeah. Anybody ever read a book that saved your life? Okay. It's a lot of work to stay alive emotionally as you age. I can't explain to you why that is. It's just a fact. But writing is a practice of feeling alive, of staying open to curiosity and confusion, of staying humble and free and compassionate. Personally, I think that's pretty useful in this world and whatever's coming next. In conclusion, don't let them scare you. There are a million ways to live a life. All of them are uncertain, even if they don't seem that way. So don't let other people scare you out of the life you need to lead. If writing is the life you want, then it is the life that wants you to. And now I get off my soapbox. Okay. We're going to do a brief reading from my new project. This is not me, this is Cezanne. I'm writing a new novel. It's still very much in progress. I've never actually read aloud from it, so be nice to me. There's a part in the book that takes place at Writers' Week, so I figured I really need to read it here. The novel is told through linked obituaries. This one is written by the fictional faculty advisor of the Viking Log. Her name is Sheila, with comments in the margin from the principal. And I will show the comments in the slides. This is a world where Anne Frank survived the Holocaust, became a poet, and spoke on stage at Fremd for Writers' Week. Unpublished draft with editorial notes, Viking Log, September 24th, 2010. Annalise Marie Anne Frank, poet, Holocaust survivor, and frequent Writers' Week visitor, died 2 weeks ago. She was 81. Anne Frank was one of the first visiting writers to Fremd High School's very first Writers' Week. A tiny woman in sturdy heels, she looked so frail up there on stage in the auditorium, as though held together by the structure of her blouse and skirt. Her voice was strong and deep and full of humor. She survived Auschwitz and the Polish labor camp Libau, having narrowly missed the transport to Bergen-Belsen, where her mother Edith and sister Margot perished, her debilitating scabies having miraculously healed mere days beforehand. Reunited with her father Otto after the war, her original plan was to compile and edit the diary she had kept while hiding with her family in Amsterdam. But when Otto presented her with the red and white checkered book filled with her childish scribbles, Frank discovered she could not bear to read it. "The girl who wrote those entries is dead," she said on stage at Writers' Week. "I had to bury her. I couldn't force her to speak." Instead, she turned to poetry. Though at least initially, her poems omitted any mention of the atrocities she experienced. You could smell it in the curve of her vowels, in the moist crevices between letters, in the cool white desert at the end of a stanza. Then, in 1956, she would gain international notoriety, and in some, let us say, more repressed countries, the United States, infamy and censorship for her Dutch language novel, Natte Poes, a scandalous title, softened in English to One Woman's Water. In the novel, Frank explored her own healing from trauma through her many sexual escapades, even hinting obliquely at the true parentage of her own daughter, Margot, rumored to be fathered by a Catholic priest. When one of my fellow students asked why an old lady would write about sex, she took the question just as seriously and lightheartedly as she took anything. "Desire," she said, "is the only emotion that can't be tricked. Be careful. It is so easy to spend your whole life like money and lie. Desire is fun and funny, but you're a fool if you mock it." Annalise Marie Frank was born in Frankfurt, Germany, to Edith and Otto Frank, but spent most of her childhood in Amsterdam, Netherlands. We know her family hid in the building where her father worked from 1942 to 1944. We know they were betrayed, discovered, and sent to Auschwitz. We know Anne and Otto were the only family members to survive. Anne was carried out of the Libau labor camp to freedom, tenderly, by men who were used to carrying guns. Soon after, she emigrated to Chicago. She remained deeply ambivalent about sharing the details of her life's traumas directly. In a 1977 interview in the Israeli newspaper Haaretz, she was asked about her responsibility to share her experiences so they might never recur. On one hand, she said, history is indeed a living, breathing bear, hibernating in the singular minds of those who endure it. On the other hand, am I not permitted to live my life as I choose? Am I not permitted to at least attempt it? Perhaps what Anne Frank was really asking was, can the absence of words tell a story? Like a pattern in lace, the holes as important as the threads? After her reading at Writers' Week, she held court at the library, allowing a long, snaking line of dreamy poets, drama kids, misfits, and dorks to ask her for autographs and stare awkwardly. My feet deposited me in the line even as my heart pounded and vision tunneled. I was desperate to escape. What could I possibly say to this incredible poet whose poems made me feel funny inside, the kind of funny that upset local mothers so much they were calling the principal nonstop? In Anne, I had a real Jewish role model, a real artist to look up to. I was otherwise adrift among friends who treated me just a little differently or told me I was going to hell, or both. Did I say any of this to her? No, I did not. She grabbed my hands in her soft, dry ones, and I blurted out, "I'm glad you made it." Hot tears rolled down my face. She handed me an embroidered handkerchief and told me to keep it. She said something softly about a secret that I didn't quite catch and was too embarrassed to ask her to repeat. She rummaged through her carpet bag-sized purse and pulled out an ancient red and white checkered book, fuzzy-cornered and curled over, sealed with a tiny rusted padlock and written in a smudged, barely legible pencil in a language I couldn't read anyway. "Take it," she said. Then she winked. Why me? Sometime between then and now, I lost the notebook. I was furious at myself for years, believing she had given it to me so I would publish it for her. But now I believe she gave it to me so I would lose it. The art of losing isn't hard to master, unlike every other art. Anne Frank wasn't trying to outrun a wretched past. She was trying to create a future she could live in. The compost of her trauma bloomed with brilliant poppies like battlefields do. She believed that all human connection, a handshake, a glance, an orgasm, a poem, a movie theater filled with laughing strangers, this was the life force, the libido, that made her believe in the possibility of a better, kinder, more just world. Thank you. Hey, thanks for listening. Any questions? I see an arm back there. Yeah. What was the painting and the slide? It's just a painting I like. I really like Cezanne, and I like his still lifes, and I like that one had a skull in it, so it seemed fitting. But it's not like cover art or anything. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Yeah. Oh, what is the cover design? Oh, okay. There's a cover artist that makes the cover designs. I didn't have any say in it whatsoever, but I like it. It's just something that somebody drew for this. Yeah. Other question? Okay. How many publishers did I end up going to before I got this one or the other one? This one. I don't remember. It was over 20. And it was this book. It's called Going Out on Submission, when the book goes shopped around to different editors. And I went on submission in 2020, which was the worst time ever. People were just not responding. So it was like a year and a half before this was bought. Yeah. Other? Yeah. Yeah. While I was. Yeah. How did I stay motivated during that 12-year period? That's a really good question. I think it's a day-to-day practice. That if you try to think of the big picture, it's extremely overwhelming. Even thinking about a whole novel is really overwhelming. So I have two kind of tricks for that. One, something that really works for me is having a regular habit that I just do every day or close to every day. This doesn't work for everybody, but for me, if I wake up in the morning, I have a little time before work, and I just sit down and I stare at my computer, and eventually, if I'm patient enough, I will start writing. And then I can count those as just little wins. If I count a little win every day, eventually the little wins add up. But if I think about the big picture and how much more there is to do, then I start to feel a little despair. So it really is just a collection of days and being interested. The other thing I think is having a community of people, of writers, is so important, because if you do this on your own, it's so lonely. And other people to just complain to, who are dealing with the same things as you and who can cheer you on, is really, really important to stay motivated. I can't tell if somebody has a hand up. Oh, hi. You, Sarah. No. I have sort of like small hopes and big hopes. So one of the things when you have a book published is it's so easy to get wrapped up in the drama of your own expectations and be like, oh, I didn't get on this list, or I didn't get reviewed here. And at some point it was making me really miserable. And so I made a short list of things that I did want. And so when something happened and I started to feel like jealous or anxious, I would look at that list and be like, is it on this list? No, then I don't have to worry about it. So one of the things I do want is I really hate pitching myself. So I just want people to ask me to do things so that I don't have to figure out what to pitch myself for. In a bigger picture, I want to write the things I want to write. And the things I want to write are a little weird and a little off kilter, and they don't fit into genres, and they're not always what people expect. And I think I would be happy with my writing life if I could continue to do those things and build an audience that really appreciates what I'm good at. Yeah, good question. Anybody else? Yeah. Favorite memory? I was here for Sarah's, and so I knew that was coming. My favorite memory of Fremd. There's a lot of them. I also did plays, so I have a lot of fond memories of this stage, of being up here with friends, of the speech team, even though we had to get on the bus at like some ungodly hour, which I was like, how did I do that every week? Like 6 a.m.? Ridiculous. In January? Forget about it. But I have those very strong memories of my friends and the times that we spent together outside of class. I think those are the strongest ones. That cat also, that dissected cat was weirdly fun, that I showed you earlier. I know it's gross. Do you guys still do that? Dissect cats? Yeah, okay. Anyone else? Questions? No? No? Just nothing? We're good? Oh, sorry. Yep. It depends. I think, well, one, I think if you're famous, you have a lot more pull for things like that. I will tell you this about this cover, and I'm sorry because you're never going to be able to unsee this. When I got the cover, I loved it, thankfully, but I was like, does it look like she's peeing on stage? And sorry, and now you can't unsee that. And they were like, oh, wow, we hadn't thought about that. And then we tried a couple different size spotlights. And I was like, oh, yeah, no, I like this change. And they said, well, we don't like it. We're going back to the original one. So even that small thing, I didn't really get to say over. I think I know of somebody who really objected to their cover because the book took place in Puerto Rico, and she felt that it was, the cover was exoticizing Puerto Rico in a way that she didn't like. And that to them was enough reason that they changed what the cover was, so it fit more with the book, and it wasn't, fit more with her community. So I think it kind of depends, but in general, no, you kind of just cross your fingers and hope for the best. Or at least I did. Okay, oh, yeah, in the middle. Hi. Well, luckily, so the question was, when you finish a book, how do you start looking for publishers? There are a bunch of different ways to do it. The sort of traditional way is you look for an agent first, and you can query them, and they all have sort of different things that they want from a query, but you send them like part of your book and then a letter that kind of summarizes your book. And then if you get an agent, then they shop around the book to publishers because they have relationships with editors. So you can do that. That's a traditional way. That's what I did. There are also a lot of really wonderful small presses that don't require an agent, and often have open calls. A lot of, even the big publishers have open calls for manuscripts, so you can send them there too. I do recommend that if you do get a book deal, it's good to have an agent to negotiate on your behalf, or somebody, a lawyer at the very least, because like some of these contracts really need to be worked on. And then also there's the option to self-publish. Which is a really great option as well. To me, the self-publishing, I think people don't realize, it's kind of like starting your own business, so you have to do everything that a publisher does. So it's great if you have the time and interest in marketing and hiring all these people to put your book together. But if you don't have that time or interest, I think it can be kind of tough. But some people do great with it. So those are kind of like the three methods that you can publish a book. It's a cool time right now to be publishing because there are so many options. Last call? I think we're running up on time anyway. One last question? No? Yes, no? It's a burning question? Okay. Oh, I see you. Oh, wow. Okay. I am now drawing a blank on who was the, she left, the blonde woman? Kate McKinnon. I love Kate McKinnon. Yep. But she's gone now. I haven't watched it much recently since that huge wave of people left. Because I really liked that group. Okay. Cool. Thank you so much.